Okay, thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight I'm just going to be working on the Moodle scanner that I worked on last Monday, but I didn't turn my mic up, so it wasn't audible. As an epic fail. Anyway, so basically what I've got here is a program which allows me, or well, once it's released, anyone to scan a Moodle installation. Now, Moodle, if you're not familiar with it, is a learning management system which is used by universities, high schools, that sort of thing. So basically I've got a simple Moodle installation, basic Moodle installation running here, and it doesn't have any courses set up or anything. It's just a very standard Moodle installation with no extra plugins or anything. So basically this allows me to I can run a scan across that, and there's a few issues with Moodle itself, so I'll just run the program across it there. So basically what it does is it allows us to find the plugins that are installed into the Moodle system itself, kind of like WP Scan does for WordPress. Now Moodle itself has quite a number of files in it which are browsable via the public internet, which reveal a lot of information about the actual Moodle installation itself. A lot of people do their own customizations on their Moodle systems, and you can actually find out the versions of software that's installed, or the various packages that are installed. So I'll just give you an example of that. So just going to the Moodle directory here, and for example, this is the web root. You can see that there's lots of different files in here. For example, we can view composer.json, and that's in the web root. So if I switch over to the browser, we can see that in plain text. I have actually seen in the wild as well some of the authentication plugins, for example LDAP. Oops, I just remember how to type. Have, for example, this config.html file. Yeah, .html, and it contains PHP. So, for example, you can see here bind password, bind DN or distinguished name. I have actually seen in the wild some of these actually filled out. Now these are just present in this file because they want to define defaults to prevent errors from occurring when you look at various files in Moodle if you don't have these variables set. So you shouldn't actually ever set these variables, but I have seen them. Again, so this is, as you would expect, we can browse to auth LDAP config.html, and then they are view the source so we can see it a little bit easier, and that's exactly what was in the shell there. So it's a little bit scary. So that's a vector in Moodle that hasn't been very widely discussed, I should say, in the community. Now Moodle itself is actually quite excellent at cleaning up the user input. Mostly there's only been a couple of SQL injection attacks available in it recently. There was one a couple of months ago, and before that I've been working with Moodle since 2009, and I'd struggle to think of any. There's been the odd cross-site the odd cross-site scripting there, nothing particularly bad. So that's fairly reasonable. Moodle itself is certainly, they do put a lot of effort into actually maintaining the software to be very, very secure, and it's a high priority for the Moodle HQ team. So, but nonetheless, there's certainly more that can be done. So that's what I'm intending to bring out into the open with this Moodle scanning tool. Sorry, just distracted by Slack for a moment there. Yeah, so basically this tool, as I sort of touched on it previously, with WP Scanner, will allow you to find all the plugins that are installed in Moodle. So as you would expect, because everything's essentially in the web root, you can enumerate the plugins that are installed very, very easily. So for example, assign, that's where we want to go. The assign plugin, which is where you submit assignments, quite literally. There's so many files here that you'll get a 200 error back. Mod form, for example, you would have to be authenticated to actually view it, but you would still get a 200, because that's one thing Moodle is very poor at, is providing HTTP error codes when you shouldn't be accessing files. You would expect a 401 or a 403, for example, possibly, or a 500 even, accessing any of these files that normally you would not be able to access when you're not authenticated. Now, the major thing, what we can do with this is, sorry, before I get to that, so Moodle as well are quite handy at preventing people from working out what version you're running in the GUI. You can't easily find a version number that's disclosed in the application itself. However, we've got a lot of files. Where we are, so it'll be in DB. For example, in this one, you see install.xml, and there's a number of those strewn all across the file system, and each of them have this version parameter in them. So that's another thing that I'm implementing into my scanning tool, which you can sort of see I have implemented a little bit of already, because the core Moodle itself has a core db install.xml file, which defines the database structure that's parsed by the install files and the upgrade files to maintain the database structure itself. So for example, this one, it's Moodle 3.2, and it has this particular version number in the XML file. Again, we can simply browse to that. db install.xml, you can see I've browsed to that previously. So publicly available, which I'm not a huge fan of. Again, there hasn't been a huge amount of issues with Moodle in the past, but I'm always a little bit sketchy of information disclosure vulnerabilities of any kind in applications, particularly when they can be quite easily prevented. So with the outcome from this tool, one of the outcomes I'd like to get with this tool is the ability for an administrator to scan the Moodle system and actually generate. There's a couple of options there. Firstly, they could generate a .htaccess file or the equivalent for Nginx and block access to some of these files that simply there is no need for the application to serve these publicly. So the install.xml files and .json files, there's in the web root, there's some of the others like package.json, because it uses npm as well, so there's no need for that to be visible externally. So firstly to block those, but secondly to actually use them as, to basically log them and treat them as a honeypot, which some people might have issues with, but just to give an option, you know, these are files that they're not normally accessed by users. It might be helpful for people to log when these files are viewed. Yeah, mostly they might be viewed by Googlebot, for example, but it may come in handy in an investigation, perhaps. I'm not sure of what would come out from that, so, but it's worth logging. So we can log accesses to those to a file, and you'll parse it with anything that can parse an Apache log file. So that's a high level overview of what I'm intending to do with this tool. I have been working on it for probably, it's nearly 12 months, on just here and there on in spare time. So I'm intending to work on it on Monday nights where possible, and other times, just to try and get it on the way, and hopefully it'll be released shortly, and then might be able to get some help from other people. So tonight, what I'm planning on doing again is continuing my work from last week, which no one could hear, on the configuration and possibly even the plugin system, to download a copy of the plugins. So basically what I have previously is there's this plugin data.json, which is a list of all the available public Moodle plugins, which Moodle HQ actually offer a web service which speaks JSON, a public web service which speaks JSON, which makes it very, very easy to download, which I've got a nice little script here which basically just downloads the JSON data, dumps it into a file. All quite simple and easy, but as you can see, that's 2.4 megs of JSON. That's going to be difficult to handle and to parse. So what we can do a lot better than that. Now that might be okay for a few hundred K of data. You can parse that pretty quick and easy, and maybe even for 2.4 meg, but I'd much prefer to work with that in SQL. So the plan is to actually implement this update system to check when the latest update was, and maybe once a month when you run the tool to prompt for an update again, just like WPScan does. I haven't looked into how WPScan stores its data in any great detail, but it's probably going to be doing something similar, I would assume, or whether they're doing the parsing, and I think WPScan is probably only looking at the vulnerabilities that exist in WordPress at the time, rather than, for example, just enumerating the plugins. Again, I'm not particularly sure of that, but what we've got for now is a lot of the plugins, like Moodle themselves, do actually vet the plugins that are available for Moodle quite well for security. So there's a couple there that I'm actually planning on doing a bit more in-depth research on myself, but I'll keep that quiet for now until I've actually got something to talk about. But that might be a thing for a future stream, perhaps. But for the most part, the Moodle plugins are actually coded quite well. So obviously WordPress, that's the Achilles heel as the plugins, but again, Moodle's pretty good for that for the most part. OJ drinks tea, I drink beer. So I'll switch to my branches. So yeah, it's just oops. maybe I shouldn't drink beer. There we go. So this basically is a branch with the refactoring of the code. The other thing I didn't talk about earlier was we've got the update plugins. There's also update versions. What this is intending to do is, and I did sort of touch on it earlier, is the .xml files that are strewn all over the Moodle system. You can use those. They sort of change incrementally over time. You can use those to determine the actual Moodle install version. So what I'm intending to do is, for this update versions, is to integrate that into the actual mooscan.py itself and check out a copy of the Git source repository, and then iterate through the various tagged branches, the tags and the branches, and determine the versions in each of those. And based on what each .xml file has as its version, we can map that back to the actual tagged version of Moodle itself. So that should allow pretty fine-grained control over which Moodle version we're actually running at any particular time. So in the code base here, the point I did get to last week was the mooscan itself works, but the configuration code was working and running, but it wasn't particularly doing anything that interesting. So, but I just run that. Yeah, so it can't actually find the configuration file. So last week I had, okay, so that's probably, there was an issue with the path globbing, I think it was, for the config file, so, which I thought I had resolved last week, but it's possible that, so expand user self-config dir. So we've got the tilde in there for the home directory, but it's possible that this isn't dealing with that as expected. So I'm going to do some Googling, which is fairly normal. Quite often I understand how to do things, but then I actually have to just look up the function names and that sort of thing. So so expand user, return the argument with an initial component of tilde or tilde user replaced by the user's home directory. So that should be doing what I expect. So I might just print this and see what's actually happening. And that's doing what it should do. That's what I thought. If not directory dir, make dirs. So the directory, does the directory exist? Mooscan, and it does exist. It does indeed. Right, of course. So anyway, config is what is run from mooscan.py. Self load config. So when config is run, the constructor is run automatically to determine and check that the path and the config file actually exists. So what was happening? No such file or directory. Mooscan, but that should exist. 129 load config. Load config, mooscan config. here. That's probably why, because it's not doing the expansion of the tilde. Yeah, so I'll have to put in here the os.path.expand user. Excuse my inept typing. There we go. That's better. Now, I believe from memory that was the config contents. No, that's not it. Okay, I'm not sure where that's come from. But that's good because we've got past that. So, because it was not expanding the tilde. It should be said I don't actually know what I'm going to be putting in this config file just yet, but I know we're going to need one. So, we're just doing that anyway. So, yeah, just checking Slack, as I tend to do. Right, so now we're looking for core files.txt. Now what that was in the other branch was actually a list of the core files, as you would expect, that make up Moodle. But that's not going to work for every version, of course. So what we're probably going to need to do is work on the update code to actually grab a copy of the Git source code, then iterate each branch and each tag, and pull out a list of the core files from each of those. So in this window, what I'll do is, excuse me, definitely shouldn't drink beer. Now, yeah, don't mind that I work in Dropbox. It's not good. Just because I want to have some sort of backup, but I don't want to put this into a live GitHub repository just yet. So it is looking for core files. So this is what I've got currently in core files, but that's a list of all the files. Yeah, so a list of all the human readable files. So the .xmls, you know, the .htmls, that sort of thing that exist in the Moodle core for the particular version I have installed at this point. But we want to do that for every other version, like composer.lock. Like, honestly, why is that even in Moodle root? So anyway, we need to fix that. So so if I run this update.py, yeah, of course, that's where that code came from. So if I open up moosescan and scroll down, what we were doing is we got the config there, and yeah, so checking if we need to update and run the update if so, but yeah, it doesn't do anything at this point, so that's kind of where we're at. So how's the config? Yeah. So we can probably do we have a local git? Git is git. So the git path is going to be in that .moosescan directory. I don't like putting too much stuff in .files and .directories and that sort of thing, but I don't see a better way of doing this. I guess it could be configurable. That's probably something we could use that config directory for. But anyway, that can change as we go along. So do we have the local git? If we have local git, oh, I hate that. When was it last updated? Drinking Pirate Life Stout. It's very good. So I think what we need to do is we've got the concept of the git code, and we've also got the plugins. So local git, do we have, rid of that. So we have local data plugins. So whoops. Oh god. Yeah, shouldn't drink beer. Date of plugins. Date of git update. Or git pull. So what we can do. So what I might do is in the directory. There's the config. So that's our directory. Now obviously I'm already breaking a lot of rules by copying and pasting code like that, and I should put that into its own configuration file. For the moment though, I might just leave that. Data plugins. So if I do something like what I need to do is check the date on a file. So if I modification date of a file for Python. So check for file existence. Check for modification date. There we go. Git update like that. Whoop. Too much beer. Date of plugins. So if we yeah, so get seed time. So we want to import. Whoop. C time, and of course path dot is file, is file, is file. Part of my problem is that I use a 60% size keyboard at home, whereas I have a Kinesis Freestyle 2 at work, and my hands tend to be a bit cramped at home. You know, excuses and all of that, but that's the thing. I have a nice Ergodox, but I've been waiting excessive periods of time to get some keys that actually work with it. Some keycaps. I messed up the order in the past for my keycaps, and it left me short. So I have half a keyboard in my Ergodox, and then Massdrop takes 6 months to deliver any keycaps that you order. So I actually have like 2 sets on order at the moment, which is a bit annoying, but hopefully they'll be worth it when they get here. They both look okay, but they're not exactly what I want. They can be hard to find, and they're expensive. Okay, so C time. Get C time. So I'm not sure what even C time is gonna. I'm assuming it's going to be a list or a dictionary of what we need. So plugin update is not going to exist at this point. So I might just create it manually to test this. So that's created. Right, that is done. I'll just run this now and see what it gives us, and it gives us epic fail. Config.dir is not defined. Config.dir is not defined. Huh. Excuse the sound of the baby monitor. Config.dir is not defined. What have I done there? Ah, of course, it probably needs to be self.config.dir. And likewise, plugin file. That's probably going to work a bit better. Local verbary C time referenced before assignment. Huh. I thought you could do that. I guess not. Ah. Because it, for some reason, believes it's not doesn't exist, and it's trying to read it on line 21. I know what's gone wrong. It, of course, needs that. So that's given us a timestamp, Unix timestamp, which is just past the 1.5 billion mark, which passed not so long ago, which is not as exciting as expected. Okay, so it prints that creation time. We probably don't want creation time. We probably want it's probably like M time, modification time, so we can simply just touch it at the end of an update and literally get that straight up. I'll just update it when you touch it. So we'll just demonstrate that. Not that I need to, but touch. And of course, because I'm using ZSH, it does what it's supposed to do. So it's updated the timestamp to actually when I ran the command. So yeah, I ran it then. Now that it had been sitting on that shell for a few minutes, so it was actually more like that anyway, which is what the shell shows. So that's okay. Okay. So get M time. I'm not sure if that's actually a thing, and yeah, it is a thing. That's good. Let's just run that to make sure. It didn't do as expected because I deleted it as M time. Of course. Run it, and there we go. There's that update. I could convert the timestamp, but not right now. So okay, so what we want to do is we probably, again, this is a thing that would need to be in the config file, is to actually have an age of the file here. So plugin age. So plugins themselves are always being updated and uploaded. There's thousands of them in the Moodle HQ database, so we could probably do this. You probably don't need to update any more than about weekly, I would think. So I would think we could do this. Probably do 14, and that can represent days, and the code age. They release they do major version releases, minor version releases, point releases every 6 months. So, but they're doing minor, point. So the semantic versioning, they're 3.3 at the moment. And 3.4 comes out at the end of the year, I believe. So, and then 3.5 in June next year. So, and then so major, minor, and revision, and the revisions come out quite often. So we probably want to do. We'll do 30 days. 30 days, and we might have the ability to force an update in the main code. So
actually considered that too much at this point. So we'll go with 30 days. That seems a bit much. We'll do 14 days for code as well. So we'll do git config. So I'm basically just going to be duplicating essentially what we've already got. Config self plugin file, so we can do FOS path. So I wrote C# and PHP at work today, so now the third language for today. So it's no wonder I can't get things straight. So mtime code. Git. I've got some typos up here, of course, as well. Because that's what I do. Git config mtime code. So stop path. Get mtime. Git config. Git config. And we got plugin config. So I should probably mtime for plugins, git code, mtime for the code. Hello 7 Foxes, thank you for joining me. And because I don't have that file, it's going to complain at me. Let's git update. Okay. Run that. And of course I've got a typo, so update expand path. Of course. It's expand user. There we go. So, is that isn't it? It is, yes. It is the mtime from the git config file. So that is good. Okay. So what I probably want to do, date required. And the plugin update required. Git update required.
can say KB60 Paradise. I'll just grab a link for you. KB60 Paradise. It's cherry brown switches in it, so but I tend to be quite heavy on the keys, so that's probably why it's a little bit noisy. But it's KB60 Mini, I think it is. Actually, I know what I can do. Yeah, I can do that. I bought it through Massdrop a year or so ago, so but at least I can provide a link to request it, and it might actually be available in the future. Yeah, KB60 V6. What is it? KB Paradise V60 Mini. I really like it, but it's a little bit crampy. I get a bit cramped typing on it. I'm not sure if you saw earlier, but I type on a Kinesis Freestyle 2 at work, which is quite large, and I'm working on hopefully moving to an Ergodox in the near future once I can get a decent set of keycaps for it. So yeah, plugin update required. What we're gonna need is some to determine that 14 days. So if we need to work out if the date is outside the age of our plugin. So what I'm going to need to do, and the dates are in GMT. Unix timestamps are always GMT. GMT. I need to work out the difference in the date. So we want to do this dynamically, of course. So to convert days into seconds, there's 86,400 seconds in a day. Age, so 14, what we want is to get the date, the days, and turn that into seconds. Convert day. Oh, VI, what have you done to me? It's because I don't have device is great until you need to start using the function key for VI functions. There you go. Just use the backspace, that's fine. Days times A6400. Don't need that because I'm not writing PHP. So, okay, so we can do if so in the constructor mtime plugins and code is that it's only 10 o'clock. That's probably not going to be accessible from function. We can find out pretty easily. I have a feeling it's not going to be plugins. Run that, and that's, of course, we need to actually call that function. Doesn't require anything because it's so we need to plugin. Yeah, that's what I thought. Not defined. So maybe we can just do the math in the constructor. That would probably not be good. Plugin update required. For now, code update.
Time. Time plugins, which is the Unix timestamp, which is actually a float, so it might not be any good. Just convert days, seconds of plugin age, which is probably not going to return a float if it's greater than time.time, which is the current timestamp in UTC. So we're working in UTC. If it's greater than math, not that this is really math, but you know, does not sit well with me. Plugins minus is greater than time. No, it's never going to be greater than that, is it? So the timestamp was created plus the time. Okay, no, hang on, that's probably what we want. We don't want minus though, we want plus. Is greater than the existing timestamp. Self.plugin update. Update required. Oh, I wish I had tab completion. Required. It's true. Probably make some mistakes with that, but that's okay. Just print this just for the hell of it. Time.time's a float as well, so maybe this is all gonna float math, invalid syntax, of course, because I've forgot the colon. Unexpected indent, of course, because I've got no code here, so print. It'll do for now. Didn't want to do that. Days, seconds is not defined, of course, because I need doing object oriented. I need to do self dot. Not defined. Huh. Convert days, seconds is not defined. Convert days, seconds. Of course, I've got two of them there. Call object, not callable. Line 39. Okay, that's better. Right, so I'm not sure which timestamp is which. Okay, so the first one is, yeah, okay. That looks like it's probably going to do the job.
So anyway, that's been about an hour. I might call that a night at an hour. Ain't no OJ who can do 3-hour streams just yet. So we'll call that a night, I think. So thank you for joining me, the couple of people that did, and I'll be back next Monday night, and hopefully maybe work on this, maybe do something different, and we'll see how we go. Okay, thank you.